Good morning. It's great to be here. Great to have the opportunity to worship together. I'm always excited every time we have this opportunity, and it's a blessing to be able to gather together and worship God, give Him some glory and some honor and some praise. It's been exciting for me the past couple of weeks, with the exception, I guess, of last week. We had a good service here, but we had some weather that kept a lot of us from being able to get out. But we've had a great series that we've been studying on the Sunday mornings. The series hasn't been one that's as defined as some others that we have looked at, but it's been one that has been unified by topic. Around this time of the year, people's minds usually incline over to the birth of Jesus. A wonderful occasion, a wonderful thing for people's minds to be focused on. It truly was an amazing event when Jesus the Christ was born. So I thought we would take an opportunity at this time of the year to look at lessons that are geared towards that topic, that subject. This morning's lesson, entitled, as you may have noticed, is that wise men still seek Him. Wise men still seek Him. Our text for this morning is going to be found in Matthew chapter 2, the first 12 verses. Matthew chapter 2, the first 12 verses. While you're turning over there, let me kind of set the picture as to the context of what we're talking about. There's been a census that has been ordered, and people are traveling from their home place to the areas of their fathers, to their cities of origin of their families. And during these travels, you will find these individuals going from long distance. Many of them would send servants to do it in their place. But here you have Mary, the mother of Jesus, and her husband Joseph going by themselves, even though Mary's with child. They travel to Bethlehem because Joseph and Mary are both children of David, and Bethlehem was the city of David. And as they're traveling along the way, Mary is very pregnant and very far along. They come to Bethlehem, and around this time, from all that we can tell, Mary is very close to giving birth. With the time of her birth near, and I'm sure that's pressing on both their mind, they look for lodging. In the city of David, a son of David could ask for no better place to look. They go to, most likely, someone in their family, someone that they know, a relative's house, but their guest room is already taken. The guest room, or the prophet's room that would often be reserved, is already taken. So the family let them stay with them. Let them stay in their room. Jesus, as many of us are aware, was born and laid in the manger that would have been present there where the animals would feed. And then we learn of something marvelous. That there has been wise men, magi is the exact word, kings that have been traveling from the east, and they are searching for this Messiah. These wise men are going to be the topic of our study this morning. This morning I want us to look into how we, following that same similar path the wise men did, should still be seeking Jesus, still searching for Him. If you have your Bibles with you this morning, which I hope you do, go ahead and turn over to Matthew chapter 2 and verse 1 all the way through verse 12, and follow along with me, please. Matthew chapter 2, beginning in verse 1. Now after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose, and have come to worship him. When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And assembling all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. They told him, In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it is written by the prophet. And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who shall shepherd my people, Israel. Then Herod summoned the wise men secretly and ascertained from them what time the star had appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem
saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word that I too may come and worship him." After listening to the king, they went on their way. And behold, the star that they had seen when it rose went before them until it came to rest over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. And going into the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother, and they fell down and worshipped him. Then opening their treasures, they offered him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. And being warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed to their own country by another way. Thank you for following along in that with me. This morning, I want us to notice 3 points about our lesson. First, that wise men are searching. Second, that wise men follow through, continue on. And third and finally, that wise men fall down. To begin, you may be wondering why it would be important for us to fall into this category. Why it would be important for us to need to fit this description of a wise individual, of a wise man. You'll notice that it was not Herod who God was pleased with, who sought to find Jesus and destroy him to keep him from supplanting him as king, or so he thought. You'll notice it was not the religious leaders who informed Herod where the child was to be born that God was pleased with, and that we hear so much about here. You'll notice that those that found Jesus, those that got to be with Jesus, were those that were the wise men. First, the wise men are searching. Now, you may not realize this, but you are searching for something. The only question is what you are searching for. Searching is not bad. Some people feel as though if they have to admit that they're searching for something, that they have to admit they have failed, that they are lower on the totem pole than they ought to be, that they have not yet attained, that they have not yet succeeded. But such is not the case at all. You see, man, his whole duty in life is to be pleasing to God. His whole duty in life is to serve God. That's what he was meant for. Man was made to bow. And when he doesn't bow to God, he finds himself bowing to other things, whether it be fame, fortune, wealth, power, people, other gods that he creates for himself. Man was a creature that was made to bow. In Ecclesiastes chapter 12 and verse 13, the wise man, after looking in every way to satisfy and fulfill himself, a passage we looked at before, his final concluding thought is that the whole duty of man is to fear God and keep his commandments. That's the end of the matter. All has been heard. He sought out every way for pleasure, every way for prosperity, every way for fulfillment. And the end of it is the whole duty of man is to fear God and keep his commandments. That's where man finds his completion. That is what man was made to do. Man was made to search for God. He was made with this giant hole inside that he desires to fill. And different people try to shovel different things into this hole in their heart to try to fill a God-sized hole with man-sized things. And it doesn't work. So how could this then show that we need to be constantly searching for something? After all, after you found it, why keep looking? It's about searching for truth and having a idea of pursuing truth, pursuing knowledge. Jesus himself said in John 8:32, "And you will know the truth shall set you free." Look implicitly here what's being said. You shall know the truth. Know it from what? What's not true? Well, he's saying the truth will stand out. That implies looking at different things, doesn't it? In order for the truth to stand out, there has to be other things there. In order for you to recognize the truth in a lineup, there has to be a lineup. You shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Well, there's the reason to search. For knowledge, for truth, for wisdom. Not because it'll give you more power. Not because it will make you more successful in life. Not because it will help you gain many things that you want here on earth, but because it will set you free. You see, the wise man, he never stopped searching. They say, well, we found Jesus. He needs nothing more. That's not true. Your entire life is pursuit of God, growing closer and closer to Him, drawing nearer and nearer to Him. Finding Jesus is the beginning of the journey, not the end. The man who stops learning, who stops growing, who stops searching, has really lost his reason for living. He serves no more purpose. The man who has stopped following, that begins to stand still, has started sinking into the grave. The wise men are always searching. But beyond that, the wise man is not just searching and not just searching for truth, but they follow through. Now this is kind of connected to the last one, very similar. But what I really want to bring out here is the idea of looking back. I'm sure many of us are familiar in Luke chapter 9 and verse 62, where you have several individuals that want to follow Jesus. And one asks, let me go back and bury my father. One says, let me go say goodbye to my family. And in Luke chapter 9, verse 62, a similar answer really that's given to all of them. That no one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God. Now, I say, that sounds harsh. Jesus, they can't go bury their father. They can't go say goodbye to their family. They can't worry about things at home. Is that what he's saying here? He's talking about divided interests. Jesus, God, He requires everything. Your whole heart. Nothing that's kept off limits. He wants you to be all in. Some people like to give their life over to God, but they like to compartmentalize a couple of things over here that they're in control of, not God. God, you can have everything, but when it comes to work, I need to keep this over here because I need to handle that so I can keep my job. When it comes to finances, I need to keep this over here. That way I'll know I'll be safe and secure. When it comes to my friends, that needs to stay over here. How I talk to them, how I interact with them, that's different. That needs to be something you don't touch. When it comes to my own life and what makes me happy, that needs to stay over here. You don't need to have any part in that because then I might not be happy and fulfilled. But that's not what Jesus wanted. Jesus wants everything, not weekend visits, not half custody. Jesus wants total commitment. See, looking back isn't in of itself wrong. It's what's suggested by it. Another story you may not be as familiar with, in 1 Kings chapter 19, Elijah is calling his replacement, Elisha. And he goes and calls him. In fact, go over and turn over there. We'll read a little bit of the context in 1 Kings 19. When he's calling him, we get a great response from Elisha to Elijah. Calling Elijah comes and throws his cloak over him. And you can notice that Elisha leaves immediately and follows after. 1 Kings chapter 19. Since this is a story we may not be as familiar with, we'll give a little bit of background with it. We're going to start in verse 19. First Kings 19:19. So he departed from there and found Elisha, the son of Shaphat, who was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen in front of him, and he was with the 12th. Elijah passed by him and cast his cloak upon him. And he left the oxen and ran after Elijah and said, "Let me kiss my father and my mother, and then I will follow you." He said to him, "Go back again, for what have I done to you?" And he returned from following him and took a yoke of oxen and sacrificed them, and boiled their flesh with the yokes of oxen, and gave it to the people, and they ate. Then he arose and went after Elijah and assisted him. See, someone might look at this same situation and say, that Jesus, when he responded to this individual, said, don't go back and say bye to your family. Elisha didn't have divided interests. When Elijah came by and threw his cloak upon him, an obvious sign that he was wanting him to follow him and to be a disciple of his, Elisha left immediately. He ran after Elijah. And when he asked if he could go home and kiss his father and mother, it wasn't because he had a divided interest. He wasn't wanting a year-long party like what was suggested when the disciple was speaking to Jesus. He was wanting to finish it off, to remove all hindrances. Did you know what he did with those yokes of oxen? He sacrificed them and gave them to the people. He was done farming. He was giving his life entirely over to following Elijah, to taking over his role. There was no divided interest there. Wise men follow through. They go all the way, giving up anything needed to follow Jesus. Not leaving anything compartmentalized off to the side that God can't touch. It's not wrong to have a family or to have friends and follow Jesus, as long as they're in their proper place, in the priority line, with God at the top. God doesn't want to be equal with different things in your life. He's above them, beyond them. If Jesus came and walked into Campbell, Missouri tomorrow, and he knocked on your door and he said, follow me, what would your first response be? Would it be yes? Or what about, can I do this first? Where? When? Why? How? What would your response be? It can be quite a good indicator as to what comes first in your life. I said, well, what about my family? I need to take care of my family. If Jesus is coming to call you, you don't think that God can provide for your family? Well, what am I going to have to eat or to wear? Once again, are you not trusting God to provide for your family? Jesus has come to call you. He knows your situation. Wise men follow through. They're searching, they follow through, and finally, when they find what they're looking for, they fall down. Not in a tripping, stumbling sort of way where they give up or they're angry or sad or anything of that. They fall down and more this idea of worship. When the wise men came to Jesus, they fell down and worshipped him. In God's presence, that's the sort of relationship response we should have. When Isaiah had his vision of God on the throne room, notice how he responded in chapter 6 and verse 5. Isaiah said, woe is me, for I am lost. I am a man of unclean lips, among people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of lords. When coming into God's presence, when seeing him, when realizing what's right in front of us, what is our response? Peter had a similar interaction. When he'd been told to let down the nets and he drew them up, they were frantic to get all the fish in the boats. He had to call his partners. The nets were breaking. And then when he realized who was standing right in front of him, he told Jesus to depart from him, for he wasn't worthy. What kind of response do you have when you finally find what you're looking for? When Jesus is right in front of you? Let's go a step further. When confronted by Christ, not only having him right in front of you, but realizing the awesome situation that you're in, of realizing that there is God, there is Jesus. What about when we realize our fault and how we line up with it? What's the response? We saw Isaiah recognized his situation, but what was done about it? Well, in Isaiah's situation, an angel carried one of the smoldering pieces from the altar of incense and touched it to his lips, and he was made clean. But what about Saul? Saul, the man who had been persecuting the church. Saul, the man who held the coats of those that stoned Stephen, who was preaching the gospel. Saul, the man who later viewed himself as the chief of sinners, the worst of the worst. In Acts chapter 9, Saul's on his way to Damascus. He has papers to be able to bind and put into prison those that are following Jesus. And he's met by a vision of Jesus, who says, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Saul replies, who are you, Lord? He said, I'm Jesus. That must have been the moment that Saul's heart fell. That he felt that big empty hole in his chest that he'd been trying to fill with other things. He was led into the city. In verse 9, we read that for 3 days he was outside, and he didn't eat, he didn't drink. When Paul's recounting later on the story of his conversion to others, he said he spent this time in prayer. I wonder what he was praying about. I wonder what was going through his mind. Well, we know what happened when Ananias came to him. When Ananias informed him of this great plan that God had for him to go to the Gentiles, to be a messenger of his to the whole world, Ananias said, why are you waiting? Arise and be baptized, calling on his name, washing away your sins. Saul, or as we better know him, Paul, he rose and did just that. Wise men are searching for truth. Wise men don't give up till they find it. They keep going and have their priorities in line. The wise man falls down before Jesus. When he sees his problems that are causing a separation, he gives everything up in order to follow him. See, the wise man would ask this question, are you seeking Jesus? Can only have one response. Yes. I'm looking for him. Perhaps they found him and they pursued him passionately to have a relationship that is constantly drawing closer to him. To show him to the rest of the world, so happy they found him themselves, eager to see others make that same decision. This morning, if you're here and you've been looking for something, you've been searching for something to fill that hole in your heart, you realize that the world has nothing to offer you. Take the wise preacher Solomon's advice. The whole duty of man is to fear God and keep his commandments. Except the one person that can fill that hole in your heart, and that's Jesus. If you'd like to make that decision, won't you come right now, come together and stand and sing.